The outer deck of the dreadnought Hegemon's Tooth hummed with the usual sterile detachment of Galactic Empire military design, all sharp angles and unnecessary intimidation. In Bay 7, beneath the blue glow of containment fields, 5 alien hunters stood over the human woman they'd just executed. She was small, even by Terran standards, with short black hair, a blood-stained blouse, and a faint smile still twitching on her lips. Her body lay on its side, one hand relaxed, palm open, as if she'd simply decided to nap mid-conversation. Her name had been Helena Blackstone. Human diplomat. Explorer. Known for her witty metaphors and the alarming way she held eye contact just a second too long. "I don't get it," murmured Jarek, a feather-crested Okadar with a predatory squint. "She thanked us." "Humans say strange things," muttered Commander Rizik, the Kylaxian team lead, flexing his clawed digits in irritation. "Don't dwell on it." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "No hard feelings. You're just playing the wrong game." Then she bled out. "Maybe that's a threat," offered Zokek, who'd once mistaken sarcasm for a mating ritual. "She baked us scones," said the fourth, Kutel, a soft-bodied telepath who hadn't slept well in 3 weeks. During interrogation, the fifth hunter, Ur, simply adjusted his rifle and stayed quiet. He'd never liked this mission. There were rules to pray. Helena hadn't obeyed a single one. 20 standard hours earlier, she'd walked alone into the Empire's border outpost on Vaganol. She'd asked for tea and a moment of their time. She'd called it a diplomatic courtesy call. The officers had assumed it was another human overstepping their place, dabbling in matters too delicate for a species so new to the galactic stage. She'd sat politely, feet crossed, sipping from a chipped mug with the word, "Don't panic," scribbled on it in marker. Then she'd politely requested an audience with the galactic high strategist. And when they refused, she had simply smiled and said, "Oh well. I suppose this ends awkwardly." Their intel had marked her as a non-combatant. A cultural attaché. Trained in rhetoric, not war. So the hunter squad had been dispatched under the assumption that she'd be easy to detain. She'd even surrendered her weapons voluntarily. A rusted multi-tool, a pack of chewing gum, and a paperclip she claimed had sentimental value. They executed her in the bay, in full view of the ship's surveillance systems. She hadn't resisted. She'd actually adjusted her own blindfold before the shot, as if helping them with the paperwork. Now, Rizik was checking over the confirmation logs. Vitals terminated. Neural decay consistent. She's dead. "I still feel watched," Kutel whispered. "Of course you do. You're empathic. And guilty. I'm just saying." She kept talking like she knew what was coming. Like this was all part of some script. "She's human. Their entire culture is melodrama." At that moment, far above, the ship's central AI pinged softly. A maintenance drone had registered a temperature drop in cargo hold 6. 4 degrees lower than standard. Nothing extreme. Nothing urgent. But it was logged. As it should be. Below, Rizik waved his team to move out. "Bag the body. We'll display it at the tribunal. Let the others know we're not playing games with their kind anymore." They left behind a faint smear of red and the dull scent of cinnamon. Her perfume, apparently. Nothing else. No beacons. No trackers. And yet, 20 minutes later, when the medbots opened the containment bag to begin tissue analysis, it was empty. No alarms. No tampering. Just gone. Back on Earth, in a quiet room beneath Geneva's underground embassy complex, a red light flickered for the first time in 32 years. A man in a worn tweed jacket looked up from his crossword puzzle and frowned. "Well," he said softly, "guess it's time." Far away on the Hegemon's Tooth, Jarek leaned against the corridor wall, fidgeting with his rifle, and trying not to think about Helena's last words. "You're just playing the wrong game." That night, he dreamt of footsteps in snow, even though he'd never seen snow in his life. When Rizik awoke in his private quarters, the mirror above his washbasin had been cracked. Etched into the glass was a crude sketch of a Matryoshka doll. No signs of entry. No sounds of intrusion. Just the doll. Smiling. 3 systems over, the Galactic Council convened in tight circles, their voices hushed and tinged with disbelief. "You're certain it was her? Confirmed by facial scan, behavior pattern, gait recognition. But she was dead. I watched the footage. Everyone did. She is either alive, or she's something else now. The humans are denying all involvement. They would." In the corner, a Zolari archivist shuffled nervously through a stack of Terran cultural documents, muttering about resurrection myths, vengeance folklore, and the curious frequency with which humans tell stories of monsters they become only after being wronged. "The Baba Yaga," he mumbled, "is a witch. A killer. But also a guardian. It's unclear." "You think they plan this?" "They always plan," said the archivist. "They plan with cookies, compliments, and children's fairy tales." Cattell sat in the dark of the barracks lounge, watching old footage on loop. Helena walking into the outpost. Helena smiling over tea. Helena being questioned, refusing to flinch. Helena asking to see the stars one last time before her execution. The last frame before her death still bothered him. She winked. It was subtle. Nearly imperceptible. But it wasn't fear. It wasn't bravado. It was rehearsal. "Are you seeing this?" he asked, nudging Zokek, who was busy Googling what a John Wick was. Zokek squinted. "I thought she was just blinking." "No. It was timed. Look at the guards behind her. One scratches his ear. Another adjusts his strap. She times it right between. Like she's been watching them for weeks." "Are you saying she faked her death?" Cattell hesitated. "I'm saying, I don't think she ever expected to die." Outside the lounge, the lights flickered once. Just once. But enough to send Cattell grabbing his sidearm. At 0347 ship time, Rizik received a message on his personal console. No sender. Just a file titled, "Let's not do this again." It was a recording. Static at first. Then a clear voice. Hers. "Hi. You're probably wondering what's happening. Maybe you're panicking. Maybe you're trying to be logical. That's cute." She laughed. It was soft. Mocking. Kind. "See, you thought you were playing war. I was playing theater. You wrote my ending. But I rewrote the genre." A pause. "You really should have let me have that tea." He deleted the file and initiated a shipwide lockdown. No one slept. The next morning, Jarek didn't report for duty. They found his uniform folded neatly on his bunk. His boots pointed toward the door. A single note left behind, written in standard with surprising penmanship. "You were warned politely." That evening, a Kylaxian war priest in the Outer Ring received a transmission from Earth's embassy. It included a recipe for snickerdoodles and a quote. "Revenge is best served warm, soft in the center, with a hint of cinnamon." Terran proverb. The priest refused to eat for 3 days after. Rizik met with command via encrypted uplink. "She's hunting us," he growled. "She's dead. Tell that to my missing operative. Tell that to the mirror. There are no active human hostiles in your quadrant. You're not listening. She was never hostile. She was charming." "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest we leave this planet. I suggest we erase all footage. I suggest we tell no one what happened. And for the love of all neural link protocols, I suggest we never piss off a smiling human again." There was silence. Then a faint beep. A new file. No origin tag. Helena_Blackstone_legacy.mp4. Rizik didn't open it. He burned the ship instead. From the edge of a comet's tail, a small Terran scout craft drifted. No heat signature. No life signs. Just one message on repeat, beaming softly into the void. "Tea is served." Helena leaned back in the cockpit, feet propped on the console, flipping through a tattered paperback. She sipped from her mug. The same one. Chipped. Faint marker still legible. She adjusted her coat. Outside, the stars shimmered, unaware. Inside, something darker stirred. And far away, across space, whispers began. The humans were smiling again. The hegemon's tooth drifted silently in orbit over the charred husk of Vaganol, its engines idling like a beast that had eaten too much and wasn't sure whether to nap or purge. Within its sealed, sterile walls, the mood was less of triumph and more of digestion. Something had gone wrong. The victory tasted off. Commander Rizik hadn't left the bridge in 3 cycles. He stood stiff-backed before the central display, his fingers drumming against the console in a rhythm far too precise to be idle. Data poured in: anomaly logs, crew reports, inventory discrepancies. Every line told the same story in a different language. Helena Blackstone was dead. And somehow, things were getting worse. "She's not alive," he muttered aloud to no one in particular. "We confirmed that." There was no heartbeat. Neural decay set in. "That's the thing with humans," said Cattell softly from across the room, his voice trailing like smoke. "They're either dead or pretending." Rizik turned, eyes narrowing. "I don't tolerate superstition." "It's not superstition," Cattell replied, eyes bloodshot and unblinking. "It's pattern recognition." 3 days ago, the surveillance logs had glitched. Just for 7 seconds. The logs didn't skip. Oh no. The logs played back a different event. One that never happened. A corridor door that never opened. A figure that never walked through it. 7 seconds of a woman with calm eyes and a faint smile, walking past an empty hall, directly into the camera's lens. Then gone. They thought it was a prank. Then 2 crew members disappeared. They were last seen on the same deck. One left behind a boot. The other left behind a message scrawled on the wall with grease pencil she never left. "It could be a hologram," Rizik said, pacing. "A virus in our systems." Cattell didn't respond. He'd stopped sleeping. His telepathic senses buzzed with static, like someone screaming on a different frequency, just outside the range of hearing. He stared at the central view screen like it owed him answers. Rizik summoned a security override. "Lock down levels 9 through 15. Triple seal all maintenance shafts. No one moves alone." The ship's AI responded, its voice clipped and mechanical. "Security measures acknowledged. Additional note: crew morale has dropped 32% in the last 36 hours. "No kidding," Rizik muttered. Meanwhile, on the Empire's central research moon, an inquiry was underway. Archivist Talvin Drosh, a Zolari with 3 degrees in xenocultural mythology and an intense dislike for loud noises, examined the transcript of the last conversation Helena Blackstone ever had. He read it 5 times. Then again, backwards. Then again while cross-referencing known Terran linguistic tics. The humans had a strange way of saying things, Talvin noted. Their words danced. They covered truths in jokes. They wrapped threats in hospitality. And then there was the term she'd used at the end. "Time to wake the Baba Yaga." Talvin had pulled it from Terran folklore. A crone. A witch. A monster. A protector of boundaries. She lived in a house that walked on chicken legs. She flew in a mortar. She ate children and made tea. It made no consistent sense. Which, Talvin realized, was the most dangerous part. Because no consistent myth means no consistent weakness. He contacted Central Command. "I need clearance to access Project Yaga." The voice on the other end paused. "That file is classified beyond Tier 9. "I understand. But I believe we've triggered it." "Triggered what?" "The contingency. The resurrection protocol." There was a long silence. Then, sending authorization. "Prepare for cognitive review. Side effects include paranoia and elevated pulse rate." Talvin accepted. The file opened. His heart rate did, in fact, increase. The Baba Yaga protocol was a myth seated in Terran records, designed to blend into their nonsense tales and bedtime fables. But it was real. A human design. Not for revenge. Not for war. For redefinition. If a key figure, marked as candle-bearers, was assassinated or confirmed dead by hostile foreign powers, the protocol activated automatically. Not through technology, but through perception warfare. The subject's death would be believed by the enemy. Holograms would leak. Records would bend. Misinformation would be planted in enemy systems. Surveillance data would shift without detection. All designed not to bring the subject back to life, but to convince the enemy that something else had taken her place. It was not about resurrection. It was about terror. The protocol weaponized myth. Talvin wiped his brow. He understood now. Helena Blackstone hadn't come back. They just made everyone think she had. He called Rizik. "You're not being haunted," he said quickly, before the commander could snarl. "You're being manipulated. This is a psychological algorithm. An old Terran defense protocol, buried under fiction." "She's dead," Rizik snapped. "Yes," Talvin said. "And that's exactly why this is working." Back aboard the Hegemon's Tooth, Rizik didn't care about psychological warfare. 2 more crew members were gone. The security footage now refused to render. Doors opened themselves. The ship's gravity shifted subtly in the night cycle, just enough to wake you sweating. He called a private war meeting. "I want answers," he barked at the council representatives. "And I want them yesterday." A Kraylan diplomat leaned forward. "We are looking into the human archives. Their culture is built on misdirection. Threats hidden in humor. Lies wrapped in pastries. We killed a diplomat, not a soldier." "That may be the problem," murmured the Kraylan. "Humans send soldiers to fight. But they send diplomats to win." Then Cattell stood. Slowly. His eyes dark-rimmed and red. "She's on board," he said quietly. Rizik rolled his eyes. "She's not." "She is. You're losing grip. She's in the ductwork. Or the air itself. Maybe she never needed a body. You're embarrassing yourself. She left me a riddle in my dreams." Rizik hesitated. What was the riddle? Cattell's voice dropped an octave. "What walks on 2 legs, bleeds once, and is never truly gone." The council fell silent. Rizik stared. "She said that." Cattell didn't blink. "She whispered it. Through my teeth." Then the power cut out. Total darkness. The ship groaned. And something, laughed through the vents. Elsewhere in the galaxy, on a broadcast-only channel, a message began to leak. It had no origin. No metadata. Just a looping file that played on unguarded terminals and public kiosks. It was a woman's voice. Warm. Kind. Inflected with the faintest Terran accent. "Hello," it said. "My name is Helena Blackstone. And I am the consequence." The screen flickered, revealing a silhouette, just her shadow, backlit, like a theater stage. "You thought war was a contest of guns. We thought it was a test of narrative." The image shifted. Footage of Empire warships. Then cutaways to broken systems. Flash cuts of teacups. Terran flags. Children laughing. "You wrote me off. You ended my story. But humans don't write endings. We write sequels." In the final frame, she stood beneath a Terran flag stitched with a strange new emblem, a Matryoshka doll, open and hollow. "I'm not here for revenge," the voice whispered. "I'm here to remind you started this. And we've been rehearsing since fire." The message went viral in 4 systems before anyone could shut it down. By the time they did, 6 rebel factions had already declared themselves children of Baba Yaga. In a windowless war room on Zarnshi Prime, High Strategist Kell watched the footage in silence. "She's building myth," he said. "She's spreading story as if it were virus." "It is a virus," muttered his intelligence chief. "One we can't quarantine. People are choosing to believe it. Then we must disprove it. Capture her. Show the body." Rizik's voice cut in through the channel, static hissing around his words. "We don't have the body." There was a pause. Kell leaned forward. "Say again." "We don't have the body." "You confirmed termination." "I confirmed what I saw. The body vanished. Since then, systems have collapsed. Officers have vanished. I am no longer in control of my own ship." Kell's eyes narrowed. "Are you afraid of a ghost, Rizik?" "I'm afraid of what she made me believe." That night, in the heart of the ship's reactor bay, Cattell went missing. Only one thing was found in his bunk: a neatly folded napkin, handwritten in perfect Terran script. Fear is the most polite weapon. Thank you for noticing me. Rizik finally broke. He ordered a ship-wide message to be sent to Earth. A formal apology. A retraction. An offer of reparations. The response came 10 minutes later. Oh, no apologies needed. We love a good story. Just remember, we wrote this one. The lights flickered. Again. Outside, somewhere in deep orbit, a small Terran scout ship powered down its engines. Helena leaned forward, watching the chaos unfold from her command console. She sipped tea, her lips quirking upward at the edge. A second figure stood behind her in the shadows. You think they'll crack? They already have, Helena said. Then what's next? She turned. We let the myth finish cooking. She pulled a hard drive from her coat, slid it into the console. It hummed. Uploading. Everything, she replied. The full plan. Let it spread. The figure hesitated. And the others? They're already moving. Baba Yaga is just the beginning. As the drive uploaded its contents, a final message blinked across the screen. Stage 2 Matryoshka Protocol, activated. The ship powered down again, perfectly quiet. And across the galaxy, 1,000 sleeping systems began to dream the same dream. Of a woman who died politely. And came back, impolitely. On the fourth moon of the Nerith cluster, a place famous mostly for its spectacular sunsets and unusually aggressive wildlife, the Galactic Council convened in a hastily repurposed art gallery. Half the paintings had been removed to make room for the panic. The remaining ones, a series titled Existential Regret in Blue, hung silently as diplomats from 12 species argued at progressively louder volumes. We need a response, growled Grand Minister Krell, whose species communicated primarily through subharmonics and thunderous pacing. His translator had to throttle back the menace in every syllable to avoid setting off nearby translators. A strong one. A military one. Humans have broken protocol. Which protocol? Asked Ambassador Een from the Terran Coalition, sitting primly with her hands folded on the lacquered table. Surely not the one where you're allowed to execute our envoy, and then panic when she doesn't stay dead. A flurry of noise followed. Clicks, growls, electrical pulses. Several translators shorted out in protest. Een smiled graciously and sipped her coffee. It was a Terran blend, bold, dark, and strong enough to decalcify plumbing. She drank it black, which most species found alarming. Madam Ambassador, said Counselor Sick, blinking all 4 eyes in a staggered pattern. This situation is no longer tolerable. Your Helena Blackstone has destabilized 4 military fleets. Our officers report phantom sightings. Our systems have been compromised. There are viral stories of her walking through walls. Odd, said he mildly. She always preferred doors. Krell slammed a massive fist into the table, cracking the synthetic marble surface. This is not amusing. Actually, it's a little funny, she replied. In a grim sort of way. The council shifted in restless frustration. The footage of Helena's so-called resurgence had now reached over 30 billion devices across the galaxy. Security feeds glitched in her shape. Entire battalions had refused to deploy, claiming to hear her humming through the walls. Terran operatives were blamed, though none were confirmed to be in system. Human embassies simply shrugged and offered condolence fruit baskets. They included pamphlets titled Grieving the Myth of Control, a Beginner's Guide for Former Empires. The myth had metastasized. But this meeting, this emergency diplomatic summit, wasn't about Helena. Not anymore. It was about the humans. The Terrans had remained unusually calm through the entire ordeal. That terrified the Council more than any phantom assassin. They were acting like people who'd just finished setting a trap. Let us be clear, Een said, setting her cup down with surgical precision. The incident on Vaganol was an act of war. Helena Blackstone was an accredited diplomat, and your empire executed her in violation of interstellar law. She infiltrated a secure zone. Krell shouted. She requested tea and a conversation. You responded with a firing squad and a livestream. Sick hissed softly, a gesture of discomfort among his kind. And now? Ian leaned back, unbothered. Now, we are learning. Learning what? She let the silence stretch. Somewhere in the gallery, one of the paintings, regret number 14, fell off the wall. No one moved to pick it up. We're learning, Ian said finally. How seriously the Council takes Terran lives. And if the answer is not very, Krell asked. Ian smiled again, this time without warmth. Then I would start counting ships. And cities. Krell sat back. A different silence fell then, not awkward, but calculating. Ian hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a formal declaration. She hadn't issued a threat. She had simply offered an equation. Outside in low orbit, Terran ships hovered just outside weapons range. They weren't transmitting. They weren't even shielding. They just existed. Like predators pretending to be background. Inside the human delegation's war room, deep within a cloaked cruiser called Diplomatic Immunity, Helena Blackstone watched the meeting unfold via embedded drone. She stood with arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The lighting was low, the screens casting flickers across her features like firelight. The room was soundproofed, reinforced, and aesthetically designed to look like a minimalist therapist's office. Yin's doing well, said a voice behind her. Helena didn't turn. She always does. You're not worried. She's a professional. I meant about you. She did turn then, just slightly. Enough to meet the gaze of General Matthias Harrow, the man responsible for Terran strategic operations, and the only person alive who had once told Helena she was scary when she's bored. He wore a uniform without a single decoration. Only the absence of chaos seemed to follow him. I'm not worried, she said. You should be. I'm not the ghost they think I am. You're worse, Harrow said. You're the truth behind it. Helena's eyes didn't flicker. They wanted a monster. We gave them one. You think they'll bite? They already swallowed. Across the stars, the myth continued to evolve. Videos showing grainy glimpses of Helena, in impossible places, proliferated like spores. She appeared in 2 cities at once. In mirror reflections. In dreams reported by sleep monitoring implants. It didn't matter if she was actually there. It mattered that they believed. Belief, after all, was cheaper than bullets and 5 times as effective. The humans weren't using weapons. They were using culture. Infiltrating through stories, theater, symbolism. A doll here. A phrase there. Warnings dressed as riddles, all signed with that maddeningly polite phrase. Let's not do this again. In one Outer Rim colony, an entire planetary governorate resigned after finding their dining hall rearranged into the layout of a traditional Slavic funeral. No casualties. No damage. Just a message. In another, a general refused to use airlocks for 3 weeks after hearing someone whisper his full name from the vacuum. In both cases, no human ships were detected nearby. Back at the gallery, Sick finally spoke again. Ambassador Ian, what does Earth want? Ah, she said, stretching slightly. That's the question, isn't it? We need clarity. Terms. Intent. Ian tapped a fingernail on the table, then reached into her folder and slid a thin data slate across the table. It glowed blue. This, she said, is a list of Terran peace terms. Krell grabbed it and scanned the list. Then read it again. He scowled. This isn't a treaty. No, Ian agreed. It's an invoice. Reparations for an event that may not have even. Oh, it happened, she said. And you're paying for it. Not because you must, but because the alternative is finding out what else we're capable of. You're threatening us with, what theater ghost stories? Ian shrugged. You ever try sleeping after a ghost story? The Kralin delegate beside Krell muttered something guttural, which his translator politely filtered into, I am not comfortable with this. Then the explosions began. The first went off above the Nerith orbital station, non-lethal, perfectly timed, and purely spectacular. A show of force so elegantly executed it looked choreographed. The second shut down the planetary communications grid. Not destroyed, just paused. Like someone holding a remote. The third was subtler. Every single device linked to the galactic net began playing a synchronized message. It was Helena Blackstone, seated in a well-lit room with a plant in the background. She looked tired. "Hello again," she said. "I'd apologize, but let's not be disingenuous." The room behind her blurred. Some swore it looked like the gallery itself. "I understand you're scared. That's fair. You should be. Not of me. I'm just the tip of the iceberg. You should be scared of what comes after politeness fails. Of what's left when the humans stop pretending we want to be liked." She paused, almost thoughtful. "You killed me to make a point. Now we're making one back." The screen cut. In the stunned silence that followed, Ian rose. "My government is prepared to be extremely reasonable. Provided the Council is prepared to admit wrongdoing. And to pay the invoice." Krell stared at her, rage warring with reason. "Is there any world," he said, barely containing the snarl, "where you aren't bluffing?" Ian leaned in slightly. "Ask yourself, Minister, why we keep smiling. We're the apex predators of our world. We survived ice, fire, plague, and each other. But we smile. We joke. We serve tea. That's not friendliness." She paused. Then said it, gently. "That's restraint." She left the gallery without looking back. Later that night, Krell couldn't sleep. His quarters were quiet, secured and triple-shielded. Still, he awoke with the taste of cinnamon in his mouth, and a faint sound echoing through the air vents. Humming. A tune he didn't recognize. But it felt human. The final hunter was hiding on a rock so remote, even the maps labeled it, "Here be regret." A thin atmosphere, one sun that didn't rise so much as stagger across the sky, and a geology so unstable the planet periodically groaned like it hated being solid. It was the kind of place you fled to when you weren't planning to ever be found. But Rizik hadn't planned for her. He hadn't planned for Helena Blackstone. He crouched in a cave, one claw on the pulse rifle he no longer trusted, listening to the silence. He'd stopped broadcasting days ago. Shut off every comm, burned every tag. If it had a chip, he smashed it. He'd even carved away the tracker from his own shoulder with a mining knife. Still, he could feel her. Not in the physical sense, though that possibility loomed like a shadow, but deeper, as if her presence had been tattooed on his nervous system. She was in the static between thoughts. In the beat that came just before fear. In the way every sound felt like it had been rehearsed. He hadn't slept in 4 days. Not since the message. It came on a loop through an old broadcast relay he'd forgotten was active. Her voice, unhurried and warm, asking how he was sleeping. Saying she missed their chats. Hoping he remembered to hydrate. He'd destroyed the relay. And then the rocks started humming. Now he waited in the dark, the rifle across his knees, his breath ragged. He was thinner. Smaller. His uniform hung off him like regret. When she stepped into the cave, it was without ceremony. No dramatic entrance. No flourish. Just a woman with a coat too light for the weather and boots that didn't seem to touch the ground. He didn't raise the rifle. He didn't need to. They both knew how this ended. "Helena," he said. The name cracked his voice. "Commander Rizik," she said, like she was reading it from a file. He swallowed hard. "You're real." "I'm real enough." "Then what have I been seeing?" She tilted her head, just a bit. The same way she had during interrogations. The same way that used to make his spine itch. "You've been seeing what fear looks like when you've been fed it too slowly," she said. "Like boiling water in a smile-shaped kettle. You were dead. Only on paper. You disappeared. I had help." Rizik's hands trembled. He stared at her. "What is this revenge?" Helena stepped closer. Her eyes weren't angry. They weren't even cold. They were calculating. As if measuring the weight of every syllable he used and deciding whether it deserved gravity. "No," she said. "Revenge is personal. This is policy." He looked around the cave, as if expecting someone else to be watching. Maybe they were. He doubted privacy existed in her world anymore. "You're not a soldier," he whispered. "You were a diplomat." "I still am. I just don't represent the version of Earth you thought we were." "What do you represent, then?" She crouched in front of him. Not threatening. Not looming. Just there. "I represent the part of humanity that smiles while counting escape routes. The part that sits quietly in the background until it owns the whole theater. The part that knows how to play dead while sharpening knives under the floorboards." He was shaking now. "We didn't know." "That's the point," she said. "You thought we were weak because we told jokes. Because we asked questions. Because we said please and thank you." Her hand reached into her coat. He flinched. She pulled out a small thermos. Unscrewed the lid. Poured tea into a metal cap. Handed it to him. He stared at it like it might explode. She sipped from hers. Earl Grey. Hot. He didn't take his. "You wiped out the others," he said. "No," she said. "They did that themselves." "You pushed them." "I nudged," she said. "The rest was gravity." She stood and turned away, giving him her back. It wasn't arrogance. It was confidence so sharp it cut like mercy. "Why me?" he asked. She paused. "Because you watched. You ordered it. You smiled when I died." Rizik's mouth was dry. "I didn't know what you were." "You still don't." He tried to stand. Failed. His legs buckled. "What do you want?" She turned slowly, her face soft but unreadable. "I want you to remember. Every time your heart beats, I want it to echo with the knowledge that Earth gave you a chance to be decent. You chose conquest. We responded in kind. You could have destroyed us all." She nodded. "But then you'd never learn." Far above them, the galactic net was unraveling. The myth had moved past her now. Helena was no longer the story. She was the prologue. Across 9 sectors, rebellions rose not in the name of freedom, but in the name of polite vengeance. Terran operatives were no longer whispering. Now they were organizing. And the council had lost its ability to laugh. On the core worlds, statues of old generals were quietly replaced with symbols. Matryoshka dolls, boots without footprints, teacups with cracks. Humans hadn't conquered the galaxy. They'd infected it. In a quiet chamber on Earth, Ambassador Een met with General Harrow. The lighting was dim. The tension wasn't. "It's done," she said. He nodded. "And Helena? She's the question now. The answer comes later." He poured them both a drink. "Not tea. Whiskey." "To the myth," he said. Een clinked her glass. "To the future. And the past they refused to study." Back on the rock, Rizik looked up. Helena had gone. The thermos sat beside him. The tea was still warm. He drank it. It was good. And bitter. One system over, a fleet flagship blinked out of existence. Not exploded. Not attacked. Just off. Its last transmission was a riddle. What do humans serve cold, but prepare warm and deliver smiling? No one could answer. Helena could. She sat on a cliff somewhere, wind teasing her coat, eyes on the stars. She'd warned them. They hadn't listened. Now the galaxy spoke Terran fluently. With irony. With charm. With terrifying, calculated grace. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, flipped to a fresh page, and wrote one line. They believed the lie. Then the lie believed itself. She closed the book. The war was over. The performance had just begun.